Hi everybody, welcome to Unbound Wisdom. Today we are talking about spirit guides. This is one of my very favorite topics. I enjoy very much helping my own clients connect with their divine guides. And I feel like it's such an incredible resource that we all have, each and every one of us. We have this opportunity to have an amazing connection with these divine beings that want to help us out. And whether we know it or not, we all have guides, all of us. Every single one of you listening has spirit guides. And they are helping you. They help you in your day-to-day life all the time. But if we can foster a deeper connection with them and have a greater understanding of their messaging, we can really expand our ability to navigate our life, to make decisions. And decisions are so much easier with help. Knowing that you can always check in with your guides anytime that you need to for emotional support, for intuitive guidance, for just feeling like, is this situation feel right or not feel right, and getting that guidance from a high level perspective. It is so incredibly valuable. And for me, it's made the most significant changes in my life. Truly, the most significant impact in my life is being able to tap into my own guidance. So I want to talk with you guys a little bit about that today. And I realize that there are so many videos out there about spirit guides and how to connect to guides. And I just wanted to offer my perspective in case it resonates with you. And in case some of the experiences that I've had, you see in yourself, and it helps you be able to forge a better connection with your own guides. So, who are our guides? Let's start there. The fact is, all of the guides that will come and work with you on Earth right now have a very close connection to you in some way, on a soul level. That could be because you've had multiple incarnations together. That could be because you have soul contracts already incarnating on Earth. That could be, this one's actually pretty wild, but it is so true. Sometimes our guides are actually other aspects of our own self. And what I mean by that is they could be future versions of us. They could be aspects of our soul that actually are incarnated in a different dimension. And the common thread amongst all of our guides is that they want the best and highest good for us at all times. And they also have a bird's eye view of everything that's going on in our life and everything that our soul wants to accomplish in this lifetime and how it ties to all our other lifetimes as well. So we can trust their guidance implicitly once we're able to tap in to what the frequency is exactly, because that is something we have to have very, very good discernment when we are listening to information that we receive from other dimensional realms. Because there are tricksters. There is trickster energy out there. There is the lower astral where less than savory information exists, and beings with not service to others mentality exists. So we do have to be very careful, but with a practice of honing in our discernment and really forging that relationship with our guides, we can ensure that the information that we're receiving is relevant, valid, and for our highest good. So also we can have animals. I want to put that in there too. We can have animal guides, and usually they come into our life at pivotal moments or certain times during our life where we can use a little bit of their energy. And so they can guide us as well. How do we connect with our guides? This is the $1,000,000 question, right? Everyone wants to know this one. And the truth is, it's awareness. For my own self, that is exactly what it is. And for my clients, they find the same thing. It's learning to have that awareness and the attention to the subtle changes in their energy field and the understanding of what is your energy versus what is another's energy, another being's energy. So in my coaching course, I actually have my clients do something that I call the receptivity exercise. And this is actually how I connected to my guide the very first time. Many years ago, it was doing this exact exercise. It's really, really incredible. And basically what it does is it helps you to understand what your own energy feels like versus other beings' energy. And it allows you to have that time to do a little bit of subtle energy awareness so that you can connect with other realms. So I'm going to put the exercise in the comment section below. I call it the receptivity exercise. And what I did is I started out with 2 minutes a day doing this exercise. And each week I would move up the minutes. So then the next week I would do 3 minutes. The next week I would do 4. Kind of ease into it. And it is basically being in a meditative state and being highly aware of the energy around our physical body. Highly aware of any messages coming into our mind. Highly aware of any visions that we happen to see. Anything we can feel around us in the physical plane. Highly aware of all of our senses, but in a meditative state. So the receptivity exercise, it's linked below. You guys can check it out, and I explain further how that works if you want to try it. And very important that you set the intention when you do that exercise. You want to set the intention that you wish to connect to your benevolent guides, those that are there to help you for your best and highest good. So when you set that intention every time you sit down to do the receptivity exercise, it's going to work. It really is. It took me, I think I got up to like 9 minutes before I actually made the connection with my guide. And that was the first time in my adult life that I had a very strong connection with another dimensional being. It was very clear and very obvious. And it began our relationship when I was able to connect with her in that meditation. So I'm going to back up a little bit though, because I didn't say that it was the first instance of connecting with a multidimensional being. Because as a child, I was highly connected. I had imaginary friends. And one in particular, his name was Mr. Crabtree. And he was most certainly my main guide all through childhood. And at a certain point, it wasn't highly accepted probably in my household to have imaginary friends or talk to myself, what appeared to be talking to myself. So it was discouraged. It was. I think that it was definitely out of love from my mom's part, because she just associated me having voices in my head with being crazy. So I think she really discouraged me from speaking to my imaginary friend. But I do know that he was my guide all through childhood. And the interesting thing about him is that later in adulthood, I've now been able to connect with him again. And it turns out that we actually had a previous life together. So he's very near and dear to me on a soul level. And he agreed to come and be my guide for at least a portion of my lifetime now, like my main guide. It's great because I can still connect to him when I want to. However, it's not like he's around all the time, if that makes any sense. But once I shut down my abilities, because I chose to fit into my family structure and the my school and just the 3D life. I chose to fit into 3D life instead of continue to connect with my friends. So I shut that down probably just before I was a teenager, and wasn't able to reconnect again until my adult life. And that's the receptivity exercise that I just shared with you. And I connected to a different guide, and her energy was very calm, very wise. We did develop a relationship after a while. And what's incredible is her vocabulary, to be honest with you. It was so amazing. Her speech was beautiful and eloquent, and oftentimes she would use a word that I'd have to stop and look up in a dictionary because I didn't know what it meant. Yes, wise, very, very, very wise, and very, very deep in the way that she communicated. But when I originally connected with her, I started to develop a trusting relationship by connecting to her on a daily basis, and I would ask her very, very innocuous questions like, should I take Center Street to go to work, or should I take the interstate? Very, very innocuous questions like this. But then I would wait, I would tune in and hear her answer, and I would go with her answer every single time. And I genuinely believe that helped develop our relationship and helped me to develop trust in her guidance. And I also feel like it helped her understand how she can best communicate with me. So that piece is very important to understand, is that our guides are there to communicate with us in the way that they think is going to be the best for us. They also want a relationship with us. It's not like it's not a one-sided thing. It's a genuine relationship that is built on trust, right? So slowly over time, over years and years, I built an incredible trust with her and worked with her for 4 years, probably 4 or 5 years, on a very conscious level, where I would connect in with her daily. Small questions at first, and then it turned into larger questions that I would ask her. And, such as questions like about my life path, major decisions that I was making in my life. And really, really beneficial, like amazingly helpful. At one point, it was probably 4 or 5 years after I had connected with my main guide then, I started to notice another presence around me. And she is now my main guide. So I believe what happens is that we have, for the most part, a main guide at every part of our life. We have access to multiple guides if we need them and we need to call on them at any time. But I do believe for most people that our guides can switch out based on where we're at in our development and based on the work that we're doing at that current time. So what happened is I was introduced to a different energy, and she is very, very different than the guide that I was telling you about, that I originally connected to. Her energy is very fun, very playful. She's really witty. She has more of like a kind of an upbeat personality, like upbeat sisterly type energy, and also very helpful, but very clever in her responses. And like she will genuinely make jokes with me, which is lovely. It's amazing. And her energy feels very different. And what I noticed after some time is that she kind of phased into being my main guide, and I connected with her more often, and formed an even deeper relationship with her, probably. And what I noticed at one point is that I hadn't heard from that original guide for a long time. And I thought, wait a second, I haven't felt her around. Like, what's going on? And I asked about this, and I was told that that original guide that I connected to was an aspect of me, a multidimensional aspect of me that had merged. And I know this sounds wild. It does. However, am not the only one that this has happened to. I've spoken to several people that have noticed this same phenomenon. And what I believe is happening is when we get to a certain place in our soul development or a certain place in our path, we are able to merge with those other dimensional aspects of ourselves. And what I noticed when I did that is that my abilities were vastly improved. Specifically my ability to connect with the records and to retrieve deeper wisdom from my own records. That's the biggest thing that's improved for me, as well as the ability to come on camera and talk to you guys right now. Absolutely, that is absolutely something that changed after I was able to merge with that other aspect of myself. And I do really believe that it was agreed upon before we came down here that this is what would happen, because it opened up other potential paths for me to take, especially in my career and in the healing work that I'm able to do with my clients. Merging with her energy I could call it an upgrade. I mean, really, we could term it that. Now, I can tune into her energy, but it's not the same anymore. It's not the same relationship that we used to have. And it feels like she's part of me now. Because she is, I will say, however, I'm still waiting for her vocabulary to come online. So right now I'm openly inviting that. I'm openly inviting that into my space. If ever her vocabulary would like to just download into my brain, I'm ready. But yeah, it's really interesting to look over the phases of our life and realize that at certain stages we are guided by different beings. But at no stage are we ever alone. That is the truth. At no stage are we ever alone. So I told you these stories about myself in case it resonates with you, in case you see yourself in me at all, and also to give you some ideas of what to look out for on your own path, you know? The main thing that I wanted to impart on everyone is that it is a relationship. This isn't like your guides are a genie in the bottle type thing, where it's like your wish is my command type deal. In fact, that could not be farther from the truth. And if you're feeling that way, it can be highly frustrating because you're like, I asked my guides for this and they never give it to me, you know? But the truth is, they are not there to do anything for us. They are not there to tell us what to do. They are genuinely there because they want to guide us on the right path for our own soul development and our own soul mission in this lifetime. My very favorite quote that I once got when I was in a session with a client, he was asking some questions that had more to do with like, which cryptocurrency should I buy, that type of thing. And the guide said, we are here to guide, not lead. So I love that quote because there is a distinct difference between guiding someone, helping nudge them, helping point them in a good direction, and lead, which means you're out in front and you're kind of just pulling them along. That is not what our guides are doing. They are gently nudging us, kindly and lovingly nudging us in the direction that they know we are meant to go in, while still allowing us to have our own free will, which is so beautiful. Because why would we be here if we didn't have our own free will, right? If we didn't have the ability to make our own choices, which is kind of the point of being here in Earth School, right? To learn the lessons that we're here to learn and not have someone do it for us, right? So I also wanted to talk about the fact that you can call on your guides at any time. You can set the intention to connect to them at any time. There was a point in my life where I felt almost guilty asking them for help because I was like, wow, they probably have so many other things that they're doing right now. You know, I probably shouldn't bother them, you know? And that's honestly, that was very silly for me to think that, because in having a deeper relationship with the guides that I have, I know for a fact that it is quite an honor to have that role as a guide to a human on Earth. I know it sounds wild, but it is the case that that is a high honor and something that they are very glad to do. Very glad to do. Partly because it helps their own soul development as well. Because if we think about it, they are in different dimensions, right? Communicating with us, but they also are a fractal of a soul as well, correct? So their commitment to helping us grow is also helping them grow, because they are helping us with our lessons, and in turn are getting lessons as well. So it's an honor, and it actually helps them if we connect to them and work with them. They really love it. My guides do. They love it when we consciously connect. So don't ever feel guilty calling on them or feel like you're being an imposition or that they might have better things to do, because truly it is the highest honor. It really is the highest honor to be a guide for someone on Earth. And I actually have found for many people that some of their closest guides, we kind of trade back and forth. So like maybe this incarnation, my guide's helping me. Next incarnation, I promise that I'll come back and help her. So especially those guides that we know we've had from previous lifetimes, it's almost like, you know, I'll get your back this time, you get my back next time type deal, to make it very, very simple. Now, our guides they communicate with us based upon what style they think is going to work best for us in that moment. And what I've found by working with a lot of clients is that there's kind of a connection between the way your guides primarily speak to you and the way that you genuinely learn. So, for instance, are you an auditory learner? Maybe your guides would speak to you in your mind, like mine do. Are you a visual learner? Like when you're doing something new, do you need someone to show you how to do it? Maybe then you will be like clairvoyant, which means you will see pictures in your mind or scenarios or words in your mind, symbols. Those are big symbols, definitely. And words, and that would be clairvoyant. If you, in your mind's eye, get these visions, that is a very common way for our guides to communicate with us, if that is your main clair or one of your primary clairs. Clairsentient means you can feel energies around you. If your main clair is that you can feel the energies around you, then your guides might communicate with you based on feel. You might feel their energy near. Claircognizance, that's if you have just a download in your mind. Sometimes there might be those times where you just have a knowing about something and you don't even know how you know. That's being claircognizant, and that's a primary clair that many people have, and a very common way that our guides communicate with us. So clairvoyance probably means that you're visually orientated, and maybe you're really good with design, maybe you're really good with color, maybe you're an artist. Like that's super common for someone that's an artist. Your primary learning style is watching somebody do it before you're able to do it as well. And that is very often the case, that your guides will communicate with you in your mind's eye, like through pictures, symbols, movie scenes, that type of thing. Claircognizance, that's if your primary clair is that, then you just have clear knowing on things, and it usually comes in a packet of downloaded information that your guides just plop in your mind, and it wasn't like you were thinking about anything, but it's just suddenly there and you just know it. I like to think of this, I tell people that it's like, if you're not on a thought train, which means maybe I'm going to go to the grocery store. Now, while I'm at the store, I'm going to get some oranges. And when I get those oranges, then I'm going to make this salsa. Whatever the thought train is. Those are very specific mental things that are strung together in a thought train. That would not be an example of claircognizance. An example of claircognizance is if maybe you're just driving and you don't even have anything on your mind, and then all of a sudden you just have this massive insight that just pops into your mind. Maybe it's a solution to a problem that you haven't been thinking about, but you know it's a problem and it's kind of just stored somewhere in your mind, and you get the solution. That's claircognizance, and that's your guides downloading that information into you in that moment. Clairsentience, that one's the clear feeling, which is energies around your body. For me, if I feel an energy around me, it feels very warm often, depending on the frequency of the being. Very warm. You can feel tingles. You can feel tickles. You can feel, to me, what it feels like when one of my guides is near, it feels like the sun is shining very brightly on one side of my face. So once you get to know the energetic signature of whichever being that you're speaking with, you can actually even ask them, show me now what your energy signature feels like. And then every time you feel that same thing, then that is that guide. Because you attune to what their frequency is, and you remember what that felt like. So for my main guide right now, my main guide that I've worked with for many, many, many years now, it feels like the sun is shining very, very, very brightly on my face. Another example of how it might feel is if you were to hold your hand over your arm or just like over an exposed part of your skin, and you can feel that something's there, but it's not like a touch, right? It's just a little bit of warmth, a little bit of energy that might be emanating off your hand onto your arm or wherever you are trying it. That is how I experience different energies as well, different beings, depending on their frequency. And then clairaudient. Yes, that is if you communicate with your guides in your mind, as far as hearing something in your mind. this is, if you are an auditory learner too, maybe you need someone to explain it to you in word form, you know, as opposed to reading a book or seeing a visual, something like that. Oftentimes, people that are clairaudient are auditory learners. And the way that I can kind of describe how this is it's a little bit of different frequency that I hear in my mind. And a lot of people are like waiting for this like booming voice of God to come in their mind or something. And that's not how it works for myself and for any of my clients that are clairaudient. That's never how I've heard it. It's more like we all have the capability of this as well. So if you hear a song in your mind and it gets stuck in your mind on repeat, that is an example of how it sounds when your guides communicate with you. For me, anyway. It's not like a booming, loud or frightening voice or anything like that. But it is just like when a song is stuck in your mind. That's the best way that I can describe it to you. Once you understand that, you might be like, wow, I'm actually clairaudient. We all have the capability of being all the clairs and having all the clairs. It just really depends on which one we choose to focus on, right, the most. And most of us are probably leaning towards one or two primary clairs. And as we develop, we of course can encompass all of the clairs. As we enhance our psychic abilities, then we can also choose to enhance any of the clairs. I'll cover real quickly Clairaudiance and Clairgustance. Clairaudiance is smell. Most people don't have this as a primary clair, to be honest with you. I've never met anyone that receives their bulk of their psychic information through smell. But it does happen that you can. Maybe you smell cigarettes and there's been no one smoking around you, and it could be an instance that your guide is communicating with you. Same as like perfumes are pretty popular. Flowers, pretty popular. It could just be a way that your guides get your attention, is through smells. And then clairgustance is taste. And that's also not very common, but it can happen. If suddenly you have a bursting taste of lemon in your mouth, it could be your guides communicating with you. But most of the time, this just takes a little further investigation. Like, what does the taste of lemon in my mouth mean to me? What are they trying to tell me? So it could be a message that takes a lot further deciphering. And I feel like that's the reason why we don't often see that as a primary clair for people, a primary way that our guides communicate to us, because it takes a lot more effort to discern the information or to understand the information and assimilate it into something that's useful. But it is a clair, and it can be very, very, very powerful. It's just probably not the main way that you're going to sense your guides, especially in the beginning. But I still wanted to tell you about them because they're pretty cool. Oftentimes, people think my guides never talk to me. They never talk to me. But the truth is they are speaking to us often. We just need to know the signs and realize that that's what's going on. Here are some very common ways that I see guides communicate to people through songs. You might get in the car and hear a song, and then you get out of the car in the grocery store and you hear the same song, and then your friend's playing the same song when you get to their house. I mean, it's usually something like that, where the same song randomly comes on. And if you were to pay attention to the lyrics in it, it might have a deeper meaning to you. If you specifically ask your guides for help, and then you hear a song that comes on like that, it is likely that they communicate with you in that fashion, especially if you're listening and aware of the music that you're listening to. They also communicate in synchronicities to people. And that's just things that are too random, too crazy to be random, right? It's like maybe you see a bluebird and a bluebird and a bluebird all of a sudden. Or just something that you're not used to seeing 3 times in a row, 4 times in a row, something like that. Or synchronicities are kind of like things that seem coincidental, but they aren't, right? Oftentimes, that is something that will come up for people, is that through synchronicities is how they realize that their guides are communicating, and they understand that that's the direction that they're meant to go in their life. Numbers. A lot of people talk about seeing numbers, whether it's repeating numbers, whether it's the same number a bunch of different places in the day. It could mean that your guides are trying to connect with you. And I actually have friends that when they see these numbers, they refer to them as angel numbers, and they'll look up what exactly the number 111 means, because they see 111 everywhere. And if you are that person that sees that everywhere and you make the habit of looking it up, then your guides are going to give you communication in that style. If they know, oh, we'll show her this 3 times and then she's going to look it up, you've established that habit, that pattern, and they know that that's a surefire way to communicate with you. Oh, another interesting thing is through algorithms, which, yeah, YouTube's got some benefits, right? The way that the algorithm rolls over to the next video, this happens a lot for people, is it's the exact video that you're meant to see at that exact time. You could say the same thing for any social media platform, probably, that our guides are able to communicate with us in that fashion, lining it up so that we will see the information that we need to see in that moment. And aside from the receptivity exercise that I told you about, my very favorite way to help people connect in the beginning is for them to ask right before they fall asleep, just as they're about to fall asleep. Set the intention: I wish to connect to my guides. I wish to ask my guides a question. And then whatever question that is, allow yourself to fall asleep. And then as you awaken, very, very, very often there is communication in that space between sleep and wake. Very often, whether we realize that we're being communicated with or not. So you can ask a question like, you can ask the guide's name. A lot of my clients are able to do that, especially if they feel like they feel like their relationship could be deeper if they had a name, because we're human and we like to label things. If we had a name for our guide, you can ask right before you fall asleep, and oftentimes right upon awakening, that name will be there. That's a very innocuous way of testing this out. But you can also ask questions if something's going on in your life. I would like to ask my guides which school my kids could go to. What's the best school that I could send them to, or whatever the question is that's in your mind at the time. And you may not get the exact answer upon awakening, but you might get some insight that you wouldn't have had otherwise, right? That might help you with your decision. So lastly, I'll mention that our guides often communicate to us in our dreams as well, especially if we're not as able to connect in a waking state yet. It's highly likely that your guides are speaking to you in your dreams. So you can be aware of that too. I do hope to have a dream expert on. I'm going to just let you guys know a little bit ahead of time. I'm going to have a dream expert on. She's a friend of mine. Her name's Nora. She's an amazing healer herself, and a mystic. And her specialty, one of her many specialties, I should say, is doing dream work. Understanding messages in our dreams. And it's a very deep study. So I am excited to get to speak with her and bring her to you guys at some point in the near future. But other than that, my Patreon group meets every month. The month of March, our theme will be Journey to Meet Your Guides. So if any of this has been of interest to you, we will go deeper into a meditation in that group setting, to receive messages from our guides, to receive connection with them, and to understand how they better communicate with us on the daily. So if you're interested at all in the Patreon group, you can look at the link below. We meet every week, we do an energy process, and it's a really fun community setting where we can have a sharing circle if you want, but there's no requirement at all to share, of course. And if you're unable to attend live, it's not a big deal, because I just send out the recording once we are done. So I'm so glad you guys joined me today. I hope this was helpful to you. If you have any questions, please let me know. I am here to help. Until next time.